Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are today starting a series for the game The Cave. This was a Double Fine produced, published by Sega, directed by Ron Gilbert, who surprisingly, I think I kind of love everything Ron Gilbert has ever made, and didn't realize that so many of the games that I've played actually were some part affected by his design, his directing, his producing. Although, in all fairness, a large part of his career also has been running companies to make early kids point and click adventure games like Putt Putt and the Humongous Games, which I believe was his company. The Cave is a more mature, darker, while still being comedic story. It is an attempt, I think, to tell something like Maniac Mansion in 2013 in a more modern time. So I'm going to be playing with a controller. You launch into the game and you just get Sega's logo and Double Fine's logo, and it's right here. As soon as I hit start, it's going to start talking to me. And I think for the most part, it is narrated for the entirety of the game. The real thing that makes us like Maniac Mansion is that you'll be picking two characters, and then you will be going through the cave, but subsections of the caves will only be enterable or at least completable based on the two characters that you select. One of the two characters that you select. Um, is there anything else we need to mention here before we start? Uh, no, I guess not. Well, if I think of anything, I'll mention it as we go. Let's go. Alright, so I did start and it started talking to me the first time. And now let's see, we can turn off the VSync and apply that. And then do that. There's a how to play option that we probably don't need to look at, really. Yeah, left stick A to jump, B to release, X to interact with things, B to pick up and drop, X to use other stuff, switch characters with the D-pad. Ooh, it seems like you actually pick three characters. And the image you see of these three characters, by the way, are very, very different characters. You have a knight, a hillbilly, scientist, an adventurer, a twins, a monk, and a time traveler, which is actually quite a lot of people. 7 different people. Yeah. One of the complaints you could probably easily throw at Maniac Mansion is the fact that we probably don't want to check the extras yet. Maniac Mansion was a little bit cryptic, and it was kind of impossible to figure out how to beat the game without a walkthrough, even though you had 3 characters because of the interaction of characters. I think it's very much going to be scaled down in this game. If I recall last time when I originally played this, you really don't ever run into a scenario where any combination would fail you. Much like like most point and click adventures, also, I don't think you can really die, or if you do, you're gonna get reset to checkpoints.
Welcome.
We're gonna go ahead and move the mouse out of the way.
And mysterious voice startle you. For hundreds, nay thousands, nay tens of thousands of years, people have come to me in search of what they desire most. Few find what they are looking for. Even fewer ever leave. Welcome to The Cave. That's me, The Cave. Yes, I'm a talking cave. Don't laugh. It makes dating hell. Besides, I have a really interesting story to tell you this evening, so pay attention. It's a story of 7 people and a glimpse into a dark place in each of their hearts. But be careful before you judge. There is a dark place in your heart as well. Someday you will find yourself descending my depths in search of what you desire. And you might not like what you find either. But enough about you. This is about them.
So here's your character selection screen, just like Maniac Mansion. Now, immediately from the setup, you can kind of see why there wasn't a sequel here. It is going to be this dark, like, Goosebumps style storytelling where people are going to be revealed as the bad guys. The characters you're going to play as are going to be revealed as having done something evil and thus deserving of some kind of divine punishment or as such. So if you were going to make a sequel to this, you would have really just had the thought of 7 other archetype characters, which would have been pretty hard to do. When you take out sci-fi person and night person, you would really struggle to find new archetypes. If this game had come out later, and being a Double Fine game, it probably was very late and over budget. That seems to be stereotypical for them. You would almost certainly, instead of just seeing a random knight, you would have seen Shovel Knight there. The other characters could easily be like the Adventure Girl could have been the Spelunky character. I could think of several indie games that have come out in the years since this has come out, and like the Scientist Lady could have been Chell from the Portal series. That would have been fine. You probably would have a bit of a hard time finding a Hillbilly character if you're going to try and license that. But you'd have no trouble finding a sci-fi character. Cyberpunk 2077 is not out as of this recording, but almost certainly you could get a character from that to replace that character. And the Ghost Kids could be anything. And the monk. I don't know if there's any famous monks that you could really get from.
The Hillbilly. On this fine night, he searches for his true love, but does desire burn too brightly in his heart? The knight. He is on a quest for a sword of unequaled power and prestige. But will he find it before anyone else gets hurt?
So, we'll just go through all of these.
The time traveler. She is here to right a wrong 1,000,000 years in the making. Fortunately for her, yesterday is a new day.
The darkness of the story here and the kind of twisted tale limits the popularity of a game like this a little too much, and it is already kind of a niche. I'm fairly certain they didn't sell it as a Maniac Mansion inspired homage or as a point and click adventure. It's not by definition really a point and click adventure as we actually get into the gameplay. But yeah, most point and click adventure games, though, that you would want to do this, you would have a story built around the character, and the environments would change quite a bit. It's not really going to happen that way since you're going to spend the entire game in the cave. The subsections of the caves are going to be a little customized, but it's still inside a cave, and you're not going to really interact with anybody, so you're not going to get a straight man to lob jokes off of. We're not going to see any Monkey Island quips or any real puzzles that are outside of the standard set of puzzles that we'll be doing. So it would be really hard to take any of these characters and make a spin-off. You'd almost have to have committed to making 7 spin-offs for each character, and that would have been kind of ridiculous.
The scientist. She is on the cusp of a great discovery for all of humankind, and 100 million lives hang in the balance.
I'll say there's also some scaling issues here. When you look at the scientists, where her hips are compared to where the future time traveler's hips are. The height there just does not match up as far as just human anatomy. They're going for a Double Fine unique art style that was somewhat consistent, but never really well adapted or liked. And when you look at the kids compared to like the adventurer, their height is rather short. You would have to put them at being maybe 10 or 11 years old, and the adventurer would have to be approaching a good 6 feet for that to really
the
balance.
adventurer. She is hot on the trail of her lost companions and unequaled ancient treasure, but not necessarily in that order.
I suppose it is also worth mentioning that the time traveler has very high, like, hover boots, so that could explain somewhat why her hips are so high up in comparison. But it really doesn't explain a lot because she's just about as tall as the scientist.
The twins, they just want to go outside and play. What could be more innocent than that?
Now, it might be more of a story that these characters are kind of innocent and the stories get twisted to blame the victims of sort. I don't remember the story completely enough to really know if that's the case or not. And you're supposed to play this game over and over again to get all of the endings, and that's potentially that might affect how the endings go otherwise. Excuse me as I check the water. I know it's taking forever to just start.
He seeks his master so he can become the master. It's a journey filled with peace and enlightenment. And murder. I'm sorry.
So it's kind of obvious the cave is the bad guy. Alright, so let's just do this way. We'll take the first 3. And then we can move this guy. And so he can walk to the left. And this is a shoddy barricade. And we can go to the right. And we have a crowbar. So you have a tutorial section. X interacts with it. Notice there's no verb wheel here. No real need for it. There's also no real dialogue. If I recall correctly, it took way more time than it should have for them to program all of the interactions in here. Whereas if you were to program this in something like Source Engine or Unity would be the better move, you would easily have been able to do this. So we'll have to look and see how many times we use the crowbar, because that's kind of like a Half-Life thing. So as soon as I entered the cave, that's that guy. He is locked in there. He is one of the characters that we'll be playing as. And we kind of don't need yet to pick the other characters. You can see skeletons and such. A to jump. Danger, keep out. Danger, seriously. A to jump up and lift. All of these things you typically don't have in a point and click adventure though. You're not running and jumping and directly controlling a character. And it probably took away from the budget from the writing. I'm not sure any of these characters actually talk. So, over here is the way that I imagine the adventurer could go. And with like a hook shot to climb up there. And so you're going to start running into things that are sorted differently. Based on the directions you can choose to move. Like, we came down this way, and all there is over here is just some glowing things. You do need falling action in the game, so I'm not going to really criticize the fact that we are mostly just walking around in silence.
You break it, you buy it. Just saying. I don't think that bridge has been safety tested with more than 2 people.
So here's the confirmation part. You can't break this bridge, and you can't play any further until you pick your 3. And pretty much when you pick your 3, that's gonna determine the paths you take. But they did it in such a way, through playtesting and through just good planning, I imagine, so that any combination of 3 characters should beat all puzzles.
Careful. If that bridge breaks, there might be no way back up. And by if, I mean when that bridge breaks. Who am I kidding?
So, yeah. It probably isn't worth your time, even to try to get every single combination and see everything. Probably isn't worth your time to then try every single combination here. You just, I think, have to beat the game, one playthrough of the game, with each of the character. It might even come down, I can't even remember, to the point where of these 3 characters, only one of them gets an actual ending. And what's funny is this girl is floating, so she shouldn't add any weight at all. She never gets on the platform at all. So there's probably some Monkey Island references there. Here we have employees only door, and the crowbar won't work without. Down here we have some gears and swimming. Swimming mechanic really not needed. What I'd say is more funny is the fact that the effort and programming in this probably didn't ever get reused by Double Fine. Except for maybe their sequel to Psychonauts that they're still working on right now might use some of this technology. Otherwise, it's mostly going to be wasted. So I think this part is when it starts to change. Not quite yet, but we have a guy crying with a postcard display. And we can pick up a postcard. And if we're gonna pick up a postcard, then let's start with the hillbilly with the crowbar. And then this. I guess we are gonna actually talk to a character. But I think this is kind of the only character we talk to. Apparently we can't open the door, so we have to talk to him.
Oh, I hope you're not here to visit the cave, because
Can we turn subtitles on? It wasn't under display. Let's see, super sampling, anti-aliasing could probably be turned on. Audio, subtitles, there we go. And controls, I guess you could remap the buttons.
The gruesome and horrific accident has occurred, and there's no way we can open. No way. I shudder to even describe to you what has transpired. For the nightmares will forever haunt your every thought.
Well, if you insist.
When I came in, we had no trinkets to sell in the gift shop.
Okay. So he wants trinkets. Let's see if we can talk to him
The
again.
humanity. I'll never be the same. Some things you can't unsee. What am I gonna do now?
So why swaps?
No. There is a way I could reopen, allowing you fine adventurers to partake in the unique experience that only the cave has to offer. I just need 3 small trinkets to sell. Just 3. Let me say that number again. 3. Take this giant novelty-sized key. It's cute, isn't it? Open the employee's back entrance. I'm sure you'll find some treasures worthy of the cave's gift shop. Haste makes waste is a stupid saying. Still, get cracking.
So, yep, we've got a little bit more tutorialization to do, I think, before we start to go in different directions. And you can kind of tell that this is going to be the repetitive part of the game.
He is a funny little man, isn't he? I should probably fire him. I think he's dipping into the till.
So, nothing really would stop you from getting down here, and climbing up seems to be pretty doable for any character. And these guys are going to just automatically follow me, I guess, so there's some nice programming there, I suppose. So, here we have a broken old well, and over there we have a symbol of my ability to teleport. But then you press X, and I guess this is probably some collectibles throughout the game, which is interesting for a point-and-click adventure. Collectibles really haven't been a thing ever in point-and-click adventures, and they probably should have been. But typically, old-school point-and-clicks, you had to do so much effort, frankly, to find the objects you had to interact with. Spending extra time finding pixel hunting and finding things you didn't need to collect it would just be like too difficult, too frustrating. So each one of those symbols is unique to each of the characters. I think you probably can only collect them using each character's ability. There seems to be, if I count right, 8 in total of them. So Y makes you jump as a time traveler over, and then X uses your ability. Interesting. But I don't really need that. This is kind of a great example of something that you don't actually need special abilities for, because clearly the time traveler could get through that gate, and probably the adventurer, and probably the twins, if I was to guess. And I guess you can just collect other people's things, but I imagine what happens here is you can only collect the things of the characters you selected. And from the looks of this, if it's starting the peasant boy, it feels like the peasant boy stole some knight's armor and decided to call himself and pretend that he was a knight. So we probably need the crowbar. And this is like a hacking fuse box that I don't think we can do anything with. And that grabbed something. So let's move on now to this character. Notice that they didn't really move from where they were. There's probably a good reason from this. Here we have a new grog machine, and a hot dog machine. These are all references, I believe, to can we put that down over here? Yeah, I vaguely recall actually this being a problem where you put things down and then you have trouble interacting with it. Apparently the Hillbilly is unable to activate that switch or any switch. We're gonna need a bucket. Let's see if he's able to activate this one. By the looks of it, no. But that might be because that's already activated. Now, I'm remembering what this first little section is, so I don't think we need to ring that bell quite yet. But we can look over here, and let's see there's a pit of spikes, and to the left over there is a creature asleep. And I guess it would just satisfy my curiosity.
There's no dying in the cave. At least not this soon. So much left for them to learn.
So yeah, dying just checkpoints you back, which is nice. Honestly, I don't know if there really was. Take note that took the thing we had and replaced it, so the crank is now gone. Now we have a bucket. I'm not really sure what the bucket's for, though. We didn't get that far. Did he just put the bucket in the fuse box? He just put the bucket on top of the fuse box, which was getting short-circuited. Ah. And that would have been easy to miss. You can't jump over to the other side of that. We'll see. This is gonna be a perfect example of where you really don't need two characters to do this. You actually could have kind of done everything we've done so far with one character. So, X to pick up the hot dog. I don't know what the real value of co-op here would be unless you're just going to do a speed run, and that would be pretty fun. So we're going to just throw that on the pit of spikes. Let's see if we can grab this. Like, even though this is very much just dumbed down stuff, he just drinks the grog. There really is nothing special going on here. So the only real question would have been, what would you have done if you hadn't brought the crowbar with you? And what would you have done to get through the gate? And I think you probably could get through the gate just using two characters. This is kind of a two-character only puzzle, whereas I think most of the puzzles are probably going to be two-character based. but some of them very well might turn out to need 3. So I'm going to ring the bell, and then I'm going to use the lever, and it's going to grab the creature. And he is not going to do anything. Uh-oh. I forgot to bring the fuse back. Oops. I suppose it is worth mentioning it's not particularly safe and intelligent to be pulling fuses out of live circuitry unless you have the knowledge and experience to know what to do to make that a safe scenario, and also a master switch circuit breaker to protect yourself. Good thing I got that second weenie. Let's try that again. Notice that it zooms out at this moment. It's just gonna hold him by his tail. And well, pick up that, go back to the hillbilly, pick up that, then we'll jump over here and see what we found. So here's the hillbilly. Seems like each of these stories are going to start off relatively sweet and then eventually turn sour. And in the background you can see many a lost item and relic, although the Leaning Tower of Pisa is not really a lost item. Are we really supposed to jump? Or were we supposed to take an elevator? Or maybe the majority of this experience is happening in the back half of the cave, and then once you get those 3 trinkets, which will be 3 things very much related to the 3 characters I picked, maybe you'll have something more. Notice it zoomed out again. Yeah, taking away camera control and setting up a specific shot is something that point and click adventures never really were heavily programmed to do. There's also the Titanic in the background, and a giant shield from the look of it, and then an airplane. So we jump down again and then we land in the water, and I think the idea of having us do that twice is either one or 2 things. Either you take that to mean that it's always safe to jump down, which might be something that they want to impress upon you. Apparently I can't pick up the flame. Or it's something that they wanted to do twice just because they had no other way of you landing. Really wouldn't have changed much for you to not have landed in the water after that after this jump, but I guess they wanted some reasonability, and I guess when you start to think about, well, there probably are some other places where you will fall to your death if you jump. So here's a section that almost certainly she and only the time traveler can get through. Although it is questionable. Nope. She can't go through it either. It's stopping her. Interesting. And the knight's just holding the postcard. And we'll see if we can actually take the postcard the whole time through the game. There's no map here. Like, at least not yet. Certainly. They're calling those cave paintings. So So it might be interesting as like an extra to see what the world looks like after you've gotten all the endings. It's probably not as good as you'd want it. And then I am looking at my recording and it does kind of seem a little dark. I'd hate to have to turn up the brightness. Let's play with that before we wrap up. Yeah, that looks terrible to my eye on my screen. And it still looks, well, it doesn't look too bad here, but still looks pretty dark there. So instead of me setting the brightness to something more than what it was by default, I'm gonna just have to tell people to turn up the brightness on your own monitor, because yeah, let's just leave it for the way the game wants us to see it. For me, it's perfectly easy to view right now, but looking at my preview window, it does seem like that's often quiet, rather dark. Quiet is another thought, certainly. Like, after talking to that first guy, we really haven't talked to anybody else. And the cave narrator, I don't think is going to be saying too much per se. He may have something to say after we do each individualized subsection. But right now, we're still kind of doing a tutorial section. And unless these tutorial sections get finished and you don't have to play them the second time, then there is at least 30 minutes of just replayable sections that aren't gonna change or be different or interesting. Maybe the cave paintings will be different. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.